The tentative budget's approved. Again, that doesn't mean it's final. We feel pretty good about where it's at, but we still want the public feedback, which is now why we go to a public hearing, take some public comment. We would love feedback. Like truly, we want feedback on the budget. So we want people to come on the 22nd, look over the budget. That'll be public, comment on it on the 22nd, and then we will adopt it on that first meeting in June.
Welcome to Herrimanology.
The official podcast to keep up with Herriman City.
We'll take you inside the city, explore the latest news and updates, show you how your government operates, and discuss the issues that affect us all. Now, here are your hosts talking all things Herriman on Herrimanology.
All right, welcome to Herrimanology. It is Thursday, May 9th. The weather thinks it's March.
Seriously.
May 9th. I'm sorry. It was a late night last night at the city council meeting.
It was.
So still recovering.
Why do we do these on Thursdays?
The public meeting went until about 11 o'clock almost. So if you have bags under my eyes, that's at least partially the reason.
It was a late night.
So we'll talk about it. I'm John LaFollette, Communications Manager for Herriman City, joined today by Mayor Palmer. How are you?
Good to see you.
Other than exhausted.
We're twinning today.
We are.
I like it.
We did not plan that.
No, we did not.
So the city council meeting last night, the biggest item was the tentative budget was approved. And
right.
We've talked about this in recent podcasts about the process and how it's going, but maybe let's recap that again and what it means to have now a tentative budget. What does that mean, and what are maybe some of the highlights?
Okay, so we've been going through parts of our budget over the last few months, bringing in portions, different departments. Now this was our first chance for the public to see the tentative budget. So at this point now, that's approved. The tentative budget's approved. Again, that doesn't mean it's final. We feel pretty good about where it's at, but we still want the public feedback, which is now why we go to a public hearing in our next meeting on the 22nd. Take some public comment. We would love feedback. Like truly, we want feedback on the budget.
We did have one comment last night.
One comment. Hats off to Steve Schlesinger. He was there, and he actually caught a mistake. He did. It was fantastic. So it was just a, data entry error, but still he caught it, which was huge. But now, so we want people to come on the 22nd, look over the budget. That'll be public, comment on it on the 22nd, and then we will adopt it on that first meeting in June, I think June 12th.
Yep. So herriman.org/budgets, you can find it in its entirety there. In years past, it was a gigantic book that we put a lot of work into, but it was long and a lot of people read it. It is shorter this year, a lot of spreadsheets. It's easy to understand. Everything is broken out really well into the different budget categories. And don't be intimidated. Government finance is really complicated. It does not work the same as personal finance at all.
Right.
But you can get the basic idea of how it's structured. You can see the total budget items for each category, for police, for communications, for water, for all these different things. And you can kind of get an idea of what the city has spent in years past and what we expect, at least for the next 2 years.
Right.
So again, herriman.org/budgets. There have been a lot of discussions about the budget in kind of bite-sized pieces over the last several months in city council meetings. And we'll put out a webpage, hopefully today, maybe early next week, just linking to those different discussions.
Perfect.
So you can get an idea of what decisions different departments are making. And of course, this all goes through the city council, but ways that the city has done everything it possibly can to trim costs without cutting a minimum level of service. But it's tricky because you only have so much revenue. You have to have a base amount of expenses just to function as a city.
Right.
And there are a lot of decisions between that point and where the city is.
Right.
The city runs pretty lean.
Very.
It may be hard to believe because you'll see millions and millions of dollars in the budget, but it takes millions and millions of dollars to function too. So anyway.
We have not added positions, I think, in 2 years now. We've not added any hires. We've frozen positions. That's tough in a growing city to freeze positions. So, hats off to, everybody's efforts to, because again, Herriman City itself has never had a tax increase. The city itself, other than the police last year, we've never had tax increases. And so we do trim. We run a tight budget, I believe, but we'll always still want feedback and, any other areas, thoughts we could improve on it.
Let's talk about property tax too for a minute. It's something that is always confusing. I think it's very, very complicated in the state of Utah how it works. But at a simple level, there are several taxing entities. Herriman City Safety Enforcement Area, which funds Herriman's law enforcement and nothing else.
Right.
A fire one with a fire service area, which funds fire services in Herriman. So, and those total up to about a quarter of the property taxes that residents pay here. And then you have about half of all your taxes go to the school district. The city has no control. We have relationships with them, but we do not control anything that they do.
Right.
Then you have other portions that go to Salt Lake County in various forms. So that's something that can be confusing. It comes up every year when residents get their notices, but that's how it is.
Well, and I think the other thing that it gets really confusing is, as home values go up, I think a lot of people assume that we get more money, which just is not the case. Taxes are tricky, and for the city, honestly, to only have one increase across all their entities in 25 years, and we're not looking at one this year. I mean, I think I can put that out there comfortably. After discussions last night, we're not looking at an increase this year.
In many states, your property taxes are basically a function of your property value times a percentage.
Right.
And if your value goes up, then the amount you pay goes up because of the multiplier. In Utah, it's different. It kind of works backwards, where the taxing entities will set, we want X number of dollars in revenue.
Right.
Not a percentage, but dollars. And then the state gets to figure out what the multiplier is times what we expect property values to be. It's really tricky, really complicated. Mm-hmm. But in essence, if your home value goes up, like you said, the multiplier actually goes down to compensate, and the entity receives the same amount.
Right.
Which, as you said, doesn't factor in inflation.
Yep.
So
reach out to any of us with questions on that. We're happy to sit down, look at your taxes with you, and go over that. So,
and there was a discussion at the end of the work meeting last night that went on nearly 2 hours, so we won't rehash the whole thing.
Right.
But maybe what were some of the key points of that? And this was about the public safety budget, primarily the police budget. Kind of became a philosophical conversation, most of it, but maybe a quick summary of that.
And I'll kind of go back to what I was just saying. Sometimes, it's because there's no inflationary growth in the PD. That's one of our, I think public safety is where we should focus our budget, right? I think we're scrutinizing that one a lot right now. So we're trying to philosophically decide, well, if we need to add officers, if there's a need to add officers, do we add them through a tax increase, or do we add them just with the new growth that comes in? And how do you balance those two? Do you, because there are natural increases within PD as well, COLAs, you have to, officers, like everybody else, need raises every, couple of years. Equipment costs more, vehicles cost more. So how do we handle? Do we just try to add their budget with what the growth is, or do we add it through, match the inflation for that year? So really we're trying to decide we want a stable budget where we're not having to come to the public for, say 15% increases one year and none the next year. I mean, we're trying to stabilize it to where, we just know that it's going to be financially stable for the long term.
Yeah, and one thought among many, and this is not a permanent action, but one thought was maybe you do a 1, 2, 3% increase on a yearly basis just to keep up with inflation, and let the new revenue from new growth pay for those additional services.
Correct.
That was one idea and there are a lot of ways you can approach it.
Right.
Let's go on to a couple of other items from the meeting. One of the voting action items was for park projects. They're really trails.
Right.
There's one that's landscape improvements next to a trail.
Right.
But what were some of those that you approved?
I'm trying to remember some of the trails.
It's quite a list.
Juniper Canyon, we're expanding that asphalt trail up under. This will now go up from the trail, from the park, up under Mountain View Corridor to the west there towards the mountainside, with another connection up to the neighborhood up there. You've got the Midas Creek trailhead that's going to expand from, I think, 6200 west all the way out to 6400 west now. You've got some primitive trail stuff they're working on
up in the mountains.
Working on some. I don't remember the names of those. They're like
Stampede, Black Rit. Yeah, they're all sorts of names.
So, and they're multi-use. There's some hiking ones. There's a couple of. I think there's a biking one. There's a multi-purpose one. So we're trying to build our trail system up, in different ways, for different avenues to be up in our trails. And I think what I got out of a lot of this last night is we're trying to plan trails, but we do, with the tight budget we're trying to run on, we do need help, donations, volunteer efforts. We're trying to plan it and prepare it and get the opportunity there. We are just going to need help on that stuff. And we've got a fantastic community that's stepping up already for that.
And these are all funded in a variety of ways. You have the Juniper Canyon one, which is funded, I believe, through grants. Mm-hmm. You have some of the primitive ones, which are going to be, there are some fundraising efforts going on, and there's probably going to be a volunteer element too.
Right.
You have, with the Midas Creek Trail, some impact fees are involved. And I might be getting these off, but just to illustrate the different mechanisms to pay for these. It's not all of one giant checking account.
Right.
It's, you have a lot of ways to fund different things.
Yep.
Streetlight banner programs. This was a discussion from the work meeting. What was talked about there and I guess decided?
I would say I don't think anything's decided yet. This is a hard discussion, honestly, because we've had we have these streetlights where you can put banners on, and usually it's used for the schools, which creates this community pride. I'd love seeing my kids up there at one point, so it's hard, but at the same time, we just analyze the true cost to do that, because there are some roads where it actually takes two guys, it takes one in the bucket truck and one on the bucket, one driving, one in the bucket, and some of the streets that actually required an officer because there is no shoulder. So some of these were actually costing us $100 per light. We just pulled out all the costs, and $100 per banner to hang on the light.
But sorry to interrupt, this does not include printing costs.
Correct.
Those are covered by the entities requesting. This is just staff time to put these up.
Right. And so anytime you're in government, you don't want to be losing money doing a service for the public. So we're just trying to analyze what's the true cost. Is it worth still keeping it? There's that community pride versus cost type of thing, and it's a tough decision. It's kind of divided council right now. We'll decide where this is going. We're trying to find. I think there's going to be some changes, especially the areas where they need PD. We just can't. I don't think we can afford to put a PD, an officer with the truck. So we'll probably have to eliminate some of the areas. But again, so that'll come back. Keep an eye on it. We would love feedback on that as well.
Two other things that were not in the city council meeting we want to touch on. There's a South Valley sewer project, a major project going on right now along 118th South. It's not in Herriman yet. I'm sure some people who drive on 118th, they're probably noticing already. Mm-hmm. Riverton City is kind of piggybacking a water line project on that too. So as you get closer to 27th West-ish on 118th South, there's going to be some construction there and some backups. But note, in June, there's going to be another section of that project that will impact Herriman directly. Mm-hmm. They're waiting until Herriman High School gets out of classes, and then that project is going to be right there.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting summer with traffic east to west everywhere.
And then an event next Saturday, the May 18th, the Herriman High School Junior ROTC program is putting on something.
Right. Doing a flag retiring, kind of an education opportunity. They'll do some flag retirements as well, but that's next Saturday at Butterfield Park, and I think we said it's every half hour that they're going to have some different opportunities.
Yeah, between 9 and 12, every 30 minutes they're going to do another retirement ceremony, and they're going to need some flags from the community too. So if you have a tattered, torn, frayed flag that needs retiring, this is a great opportunity to bring it to the ROTC program at Butterfield Park. And get some pretty neat education along the way too.
It'll be great. We appreciate their efforts there.
So that's all for today. Appreciate you watching and listening on whatever platform you're consuming Herrimanology on. Hopefully the weather gets a little more May-y and less Marchy.
Yep.
And hopefully you get a little bit more sleep after
hopefully tonight.
Yep. A late night. As always, leave a comment or a question in any comment section for the platform you're listening on, and we'll address it in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.